Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending this morning's panel. If you were around yesterday, you'd see that there were loads of great discussions, and hopefully we can start today off in a positive manner. So thank you, first of all. So I'm John. I'm co-founder of a company called LTT Group. We have a stand. I'm not going to talk about us, so you can come and talk to us if you need to. Today's talk is how regional stakeholders are using investment to enhance community development and nature recovery. It's a pretty big topic, all right, and it's a lot of stuff to cover. We have a hard stop and we're going to try and get some questions in at the end. However, if you do need questions and there's not quite time, please grab these guys, not me, I'm not a specialist, but these guys, and they will happily answer any questions you've got. So first of all, I'd like to introduce to my left, there we go, to my left, the wonderful Clare Ollerenshaw, who is Project Manager Nature for the West Midlands Combined Authority, and also the absolutely awesome, not saying you're not Clare, Mark Burley, who is Social Value and Partnership Manager for Keepmoat. Many of you may know them as Keepmoat Homes, but now they're just known as Keepmoat. So obviously I've just said your job titles, and just to kick off very quickly, I think it's important that we understand the brief behind those job titles. So what ultimately is the work and what is at the core of your actual roles with those job titles?
Thanks, John, and thanks to the team at Reset for inviting me along to join you today. So as John said, I'm Clare from the West Midlands Combined Authority. I'm responsible for developing and delivering the West Midlands Nature Investment Hub. This is a new online platform that matches robust and impactful nature projects with corporates who are looking to support nature projects maybe through their ESG or CSR programs. We're currently onboarding our first projects and looking for our initial funders. And the hub is an outcome of a DEFRA-funded programme called Local Investment in Natural Capital that ran for 2 years. We've just wound up, but the reason for that was looking at how we were going to fill the funding gap around nature recovery, and looking at different innovations around blended finance, so matching public funding with private funding. And the hub is one of our first steps in taking that journey onto blended finance, John.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, obviously social value has become quite a bit of a buzzword recently. So, yeah, I think as part of the ESG, it sometimes gets overlooked. But yeah, my role basically is about how we can bring communities together to enhance that environment. So nature forms a massive part of our housing developments, but it's also really important for communities to be able to get out, exercise, engage. And part of my role is how we bring in and educate those residents, not just on the new housing developments, but on the surrounding areas around nature and the environment, and how we can combine that with social activities. So less of the value, I think social value, I think we'll start to see that change over the next few years in terms of the term social value, more into social impact and placemaking, because I think we've started to get hung up by the monetary term of social value a little bit too much, and I think it's more important that we actually look at the impact from social. So, yes, social value cycle, but I think let's look at what we can do locally and then have that impact.
No, thank you. And I think it's really important. I think I was here yesterday, and many people, whether they've been in sustainability a long time, a short time, we all seem to get put in that same bubble of the sustainability people. Now, I'm not a social value expert. I would say I'm more on carbon reduction and strategy. But it's really important that to see in that local authorities and in large businesses like Keepmoat that actually social value and nature are seen as separate departments with a specialism as well. I wish that would go further down the supply chain and more into the SMEs, and they understood that, and you're not just one sustainability person doing everything. But it's really nice to see that it's happening at the top end, so thank you. With regards to that, what are the best examples in recent times that you have both been a part of, where you've seen regional stakeholders really enhance that community development because they've got involved? And has that involved small business, or has that involved lots of businesses? What examples have you got either right now or that's recent past?
Shall I go first?
Right, please.
All right, thanks. So I'd like to speak a little bit about a programme that the Combined Authority ran before I joined. I only joined in December, so I've had to
Newbie.
A newbie. I'm the new girl. But we ran a community green grants programme to acknowledge that the real importance of access to green space in promoting people's well-being, their physical and mental health, which really came to the fore after the COVID lockdowns, when it reminded us how important this is.
Lockdown did seem a simpler time if you look back based on what's happening now. It seemed a bit of a pain back then, but it's quite simple if you look back.
And our research shows that it shouldn't be a surprise, but now we have the research to back it up, that actually our most vulnerable communities have the least access to green space and the least level of tree cover. So the green grants were to fund access to nature, involvement in nature, and we funded 27 projects across the region, delivered by local and regional stakeholders, which was really good, including organisations that you expect, like the Wildlife Trust, but more importantly, probably local groups, local food growing groups, local health groups, local faith groups. So we really delved deep into the communities and got lots of engagement.
Obviously, your area is very multicultural as well.
Very diverse.
Yeah, and very diverse with the West Midlands.
Yeah.
When you mean the West Midlands, obviously it's beyond Birmingham. Not many people will fully know it. What do you fully mean by the whole West Midlands? And
the Combined Authority area, the core area is made up of 7 local authorities.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a political nightmare.
You could make me name them all. But
No, never do that test. But that sounds fun.
Yeah, so we had some great impact from that. So for every £1 granted, we had a return of £4 in social, economic and environmental benefit.
Wow.
11% of the region's population were provided with improved green space within 15 minutes walk of their places, and 148 hours of new weekly volunteering. It's all brilliant, John, and it's an example of how funded projects can have a big impact, but this was grant funding.
Yep.
I want to head this question off before it gets asked.
Yeah, I've got another question following, but I just want Mark to just jump in there and talk about recent experiences you've had with regional development and regional stakeholders as well, Mark.
Yeah, I think I'm quite lucky. Part of my role is to bring partnerships together. One of the projects I've run over the last year and a bit was working with HMP Hull, the prison. So they've got an amazing woodwork shop in the prison. Met with the prisoners, and the instructor was looking for some wood that the guys could do stuff with. So we have quite a bit of surplus timber that would generally get taken away as waste. So we set up a scheme whereby they come and collect from all of our sites the waste timber, and in return they make for us some amazing planters. So I work with another group, EMS, Environment Management Solutions in Hull, and they are the recipients of these amazing planters. They work with the NHS around green prescribing and people in communities in food poverty. So the aim is that the prison makes these amazing planters, the guys get some really good experiences and get a chance to give back. These planters then go to people to then grow their own produce. But I'm a true Yorkshireman, so I never give anything away for free. So I said that in order to receive the planters, the recipients had to volunteer in the community the same amount of hours as the prisoners took to make them. And I've been working with an amazing platform that was created, Investors in Community, which is free for community groups to use and not-for-profits. And I bought a license for the prison so that the prisoners can earn what we call community credits, which was received really well in the prison. But also those recipients, through their volunteering, can earn community credits, and the aim is that they'll then be able to exchange those credits for something back. So it's about trying to create, how we can get involved with environmental projects without having to put huge amounts of investment in. There is some cost to us in terms of materials, etc. But there are a number of projects that I'm working on at the moment that don't cost a huge amount, that have a massive environmental impact, but are based around resources that we can all share in partnership.
No, that's fantastic. Just on that, Mark just mentioned there, invested in community. I am here because the moderator was supposed to be Phil Webb, who is co-founder of Investors in Community, so I'm stepping in. But if none of you have heard of Investors in Community, it's an absolutely wonderful platform. And I urge you all to talk to one of the lady at the front there waving, Emily, who's the general manager for Investors in Community. And really, if you have a charity and it's not on Investors in Community, my question to you is why? It's free, you get real access, and it is an amazing way for businesses to see what's in their local area. If you are a business and you are not signed up to Investors in Community, my big question is why? Because it's quite cheap for businesses. There's an amazing price structure. Please speak to Emily, because you can see what we know from funding to the charity sector is that a lot of money goes to the large guys, the amazing charities, the Macmillans, the Dogs for the Blind, and many of the ones that are going in conflict right now. Great. But there are lots and lots of regional and local social impact charities that do amazing work, boots on the ground in your area, and they just don't have the marketing or the visibility to businesses like you. I would urge that you speak to Emily, and that's my little plug, because I know Phil would have done it in my stead. So please speak to Emily. I'm going to give everybody a wave again. And throughout the day, and she will be there, and please just speak to how you can get on that. Which brings me on to my next question, guys. And Claire, you stopped yourself short from doing it. Grant funding is amazing, all right, and it's all well and good. It is not a magic money pot. So actually, and many businesses struggle with is it money? Is it time? Is it volunteering? What is social impact? How is it measured? What do we actually give? What do you actually need from regional stakeholders? I'm asking a local authority, effectively a combined authority, and I'm asking a private business. Okay, so you've both got different sides to the same coin here. What actually do you want for future community developments to succeed? What do you need? What do you want?
Thanks, John. Well, I'm going to tell you, in answer to that question, tell you more about the hub that we're developing. And we're kind of doing it as that next step, as this new approach to funding really important nature recovery projects in the area. So we're getting the regional stakeholders, project delivery organisations, at this stage the bigger ones, but we do hope to work with smaller groups as we get a track record. So at the moment we're working with the Wildlife Trust, the Canals and Rivers Trust, National Trust and local authorities to develop really good, strong projects that have been verified, get them showcased on this regional website to attract funding from regional corporates or national corporates or indeed international corporates. Okay. So, but the question from business is...
International right now, maybe?
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not.
What's in it for the businesses is a question that we often get asked, and very reasonably so. So the platform will offer impact measurement, so be able to feed into ESG and CSR reports directly. It links into our local nature recovery strategy, which is a regional strategy. Each project will say what it contributes, so businesses know that they're contributing to regional priorities.
Amazing.
We find the right project for each business. We know businesses want to fund local projects. They want something near their HQ, near the manufacturing site, near where employees live. We know what kind of price point they want to spend as well, so we can match them with the right project. If they would like volunteering opportunities for staff and often for local communities, obviously it's about that community development, about ownership. Yep. Then we're very, very keen to make that happen as well. Okay. And we're going to give them everything they need to share the impact that they're having. So yeah, we're going to be launching the hub in June, and we're looking for some early adopter businesses to take part in the launch alongside the Mayor, Richard Parker. So if there's anybody here who'd be interested, please do speak to me later or reach out on LinkedIn. It would be great to speak to you.
Yeah, I think anybody who's got either offices or business in the West Midlands area, please reach out to Clare. Which is amazing, but it is just about that. Mark, from a private business, Keepmoat,
I think
you need regional stakeholders. What do you actually need there?
I think the thing for me is it's about partnerships.
Yeah.
As a commercial business, what we need is local and regional partners, like-minded partners. I think we have some amazing opportunities to work collaboratively as businesses to give back to the community, and that can be in lots of different ways. I'm trying at the moment. I'd love to get this project off the ground. It's been a little bit more challenging than I thought it was, but we all know that litter is a blight on our society, and sadly, generationally now it seems that more and more young people are quite quick just to discard anything that they're carrying around with them. But I'd love to work with, again, with the platform, invest in community, but get regional community groups out litter picking, but give that some credit, if you like, some value. So getting young people out, picking that litter up. I've got a recycling company that's willing to work with me on recycling materials that can be recycled, and I'd love to turn the plastic recyclable plastic into a city cup. So a cup that, like your Costa coffee cup, that you can take around the city that gives you information. There's a company in Doncaster called E-Cups. That's making these sort of recyclable cups.
Good old Donny.
Good old Donny, yeah, it's a good plug for Doncaster. They've done a pilot with York University, and they've saved the university over £1 million in a year from single-use cups. So I'd love to try and get these young people to understand that the waste they're chucking away has a value.
Yep.
We get that off our countryside and our environment. But also then we can use an educational piece for them to be able to learn about recycling, where that material goes, what it's used for. Because like probably a lot of you in the audience, I put my stuff in my blue bin, my green bin, my brown bin, but I've no idea where it goes once it goes away from my house. So the idea is to try and get families and young people interested in recycling, interested about keeping the environment clean and tidy, but getting something back for that. So a cup that we can take around the different places, get a discount, but it gives them points. So it's a project. I've got an idea. It's not off the ground yet. If anybody's into recycling or wants to get involved, then contact me. I'd love to work with, not just in Doncaster, but in any area. So
I think definitely you're in the right room and at the right event. Yesterday there were some great ideas floating about, and then already through emails that I've seen, those ideas are coming to actual tangible results very quickly. There seems to be a real collaborative environment in the room and through this event, and I definitely think that if you keep asking the right questions in rooms like this, you'll definitely get some answers. Hopefully. Yeah. Just then, you both touched on the nature recovery side, the environment side of it, which once again, like social, is lots of different things. But let's just really focus on the nature recovery. Now, business is hard right now. It is. I don't care what size business you are. It doesn't matter if you're a startup, if you're an SME, if you're a multinational or whatever. It is hard right now. And there are so many infrastructure priorities when it comes to ESG and CSR and everything else. But there are many studies out there that right now that say nature recovery in your local area should be a top priority for lots of things, whether that is getting away from climate change risk, whether that is helping you lower your insurance premiums, whatever. There's lots of research out there. But for you guys, why should it be top of the list? Why really should nature recovery be top of that infrastructure list for businesses?
Do you want to start, Mark?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously for us, we're a house developer, and we want to create those nice spaces for people, not just to be able to see, but to use. So I'm really keen on, as you've probably already gathered with the planter project, I'm really keen on people growing their own produce. So we're part of a number of projects nationally, but one is in Hull. We've got Emma Harding, the MP. Her campaign is to create Hull as the first ever butterfly city. So where we're developing green spaces, any spaces, how we can expand the biodiversity in those areas to attract more native butterflies and insects into those. I think we've become a little bit too sterile countryside wise. We don't want bugs. So we're really keen on trying to we're part of that group, but also for me, trying to recapture areas where people can grow produce and go and pick produce freely. Is a really important thing that, not only is it's better for your health, mentally your well-being, but I think also in terms of for us, the pandemic was a big eye-opener in terms of inner city areas that we predominantly build in, and about how important those open spaces and exercise are. So nature is part of that. All of our properties have hedgehog runs. We're working with Ramby Prison. Again, I seem plugging for the prisons. If you're not working with the prisons, they've got some amazing industries. So they're making all hedgehog boxes for us. So every property that we're now building has an opportunity to have a hedgehog run and a hedgehog box. We're building in, building into the houses swift boxes. So we're trying to create an environment where we can bring nature into residential areas and get those families to experience that and to feel like they're part of that whole ecosystem of creating an environment for nature to come into.
Oh, thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Mark. It's really, really fascinating, and I'm so encouraged to hear a house builder that's doing all these things. It's really, I feel very encouraged and happy. I think we're so increasingly aware of the importance of nature in supporting our communities and businesses. But why is that? So we've coined this term ecosystem services, which I think will come up in some of the sessions later in the day. And it's basically all the benefits that nature brings to us that we've never really valued or quantified. And actually, it's time we put a pound and a pence against them. So I'm talking about things like natural flood management, air quality management, and these health and wellbeing impacts as well.
Yep.
We've done a study in the Combined Authority, and we've valued those services that nature provides to us at £676 million per year, which
is that figure again?
£676 million per year. It's a sizable industry. So here's a thought for this morning, is that actually that infrastructure, that natural infrastructure, is something that we should be caring for, we should be maintaining and investing in like we would any other type of what we might call grey infrastructure. So I think we could start looking at things in a different way, because in terms of business resilience, whether you're a big or a small business, we all know just 3 big weather events in the West Midlands. I think that there were a heat wave, a storm, and a couple of storms cost the region £21 million, and that's probably a massive underestimate. So I think climate change is a massive business resilience issue, and something that we all need to think about. And these nature-based solutions, the tree planting in the right place, the sustainable urban drainage systems that, Mark, we were having a fascinating conversation about just earlier, they can provide up to 30% of the resilience that towns and cities need. So it's not just about flood defences, it's about those other services that nature can bring to us as well.
No, I think that's really interesting. I am old enough ugly enough, and I've been around enough to remember when kind of the sustainability world started to get real traction in the early noughties, and when the SDGs were called the Millennium Development Goals, and ESG was coming to forefront. I am that old. But ultimately, with regards to that, what you saw at the very beginning was there was a lot of nature restoration. But what it was not doing, now you look back in hindsight, is it was not hitting those commercial points. It wasn't showing what's in it for you. It was very much along the messaging of this is the right thing to do. Climate change is bad. And look, I'd like to think we're in the right room here, without saying the word right, but we're in the right room here to understand these things. But actually those things have kind of evolved. You seem to see them go, and social impact became huge. Obviously, ESG and frameworks became massive. Commercial sustainability, corporate sustainability became even bigger over the past 20 years. But actually, what we see now is those nature recovery things come really back to the forefront. They never died away. They've just got a bit noisier, but their language has changed. Now they're really now showing the commercial advantage. And that touches the points of what Claire's just said and what Mark's just said there, that actually there are lots more incentives and there's lots of good and a reason to be doing this other than planting a tree to offset some carbon, which don't get me started on that. And doing things like that. But ultimately, in your local area, can nature make a real impact? I believe it can. You guys believe it can. Obviously, Emily, you believe it can. I know you're not part of this, and I keep dragging you in. Apologies, but I know Phil would have done. But that just brings me on, really. Before we go to questions, there will be questions. But my final question is, a lot of the work that I do is really with SMEs on the value chain and the supply chain. And they need to know that commercial value of the environmental and social impact in a positive way. And instead of them having questionnaires or anything they don't understand, what's in it for them? But actually, how can... They're regional businesses. The smaller the business is, the more entrenched they are into an area. They're not even cross borders, a lot of these guys. They're very much in a city or a specific area. How can those businesses get involved in nature recovery? They won't have the money that you need. That can be grants. They won't always be able to get involved in prisons because they don't have that connection or even know where to start. How can those guys get involved in community development and nature recovery in their very small local areas?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have local supply chain, predominantly. All of our trades are subcontracted out. Most of the developers do. So, and also local businesses. But actually, it is surprising that a lot of them do have a real social impact agenda.
Yeah, they just don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I'm very lucky. I've got some amazing supply chain partners that will support us in a variety of different projects that we're running in the area. Our ground workers are brilliant in supporting us to level off areas, drop soil off, rotivate, any sort of things that we're trying to sort of help to create environments where we can plant and build nature areas, local communities and charities. They'll support schools. But again, it's, outside of that, it's trying to instill within that supply chain that they have they're local people living in local areas and they have a local contribution. So sometimes we can tap them up for money, but not huge amounts. Sometimes it can be materials. A lot of the times it's time. So we'll drag them off for a day or whatever, a few hours to do something back in the community and help out.
I think, just to interrupt on that, just because of that, I think that's... Look, Keepmoat, you're great at using regionals, and I know Will. There are other house builders are not as great, and they drag people in for either a tender value or it's price first and stuff like that. And many small businesses don't actually understand they're supplying a Keepmoat. They're supplying a supplier of a supplier of a supplier down the value chain. So you're saying you drag people in. How do you actually communicate that so they understand? Then you're not just doing it because they're a supplier of you. You're doing it because it's good for them, and it'll keep them supplying you, kind of things. Is there a way that you can do that as well?
Yeah, so our commercial teams are very good at when they're contracting out. we have a social impact framework.
Yep.
So that there's a scoring system within that. So depending on the contract value within that supply chain, they get a menu of choices. So some of that could be local labour, some of that can be, school advisory, work experience. It can be resources, time, materials. So there's a combination that they can pick from this menu of social impact agendas. But we get across to them what we're trying to do as part of that major contract.
So they don't just ask you, explain it.
Exactly, because I think without that, it just becomes a cost process. Let's face it, they're there to make money.
Yep.
A lot of them are trying to recover from the pandemic. So they're trying to sort of head down, work, earn money, but without explaining to them that our clients, the local authorities, want a wider agenda than just houses built. We don't continue to win work.
Yep.
And we also don't give back to the community. And I think getting them to understand that, don't get me wrong, it's a challenge because they're trying to earn money. And a lot of these are businesses that are, no more than 10 people. So, but I think if you explain to them that they're in the local area, they can pick from the framework, they've got choices, then they work through that and find their own level, if you like.
Yep.
But we're never short of people that want to get involved. And I think that's part of that relationship of building that supply chain. No,
that's fantastic. I think relationship is a key word there as well. It has to be, yes, there are certain rules to purchasing and things like that, and you can't see favourites because they do work in the community, but it's understanding that they're already part of the value chain and showing them really why you want them to get involved. They are a regional stakeholder, and the smaller the business, the more entrenched they are in the community.
Absolutely.
And I think that's wonderful for a company like Keepmoat.
Yeah.
Claire, from a combined authority side, it's slightly different. You have hundreds of thousands of businesses in your area. I don't think I'm overestimating. Hundreds of thousands. So, look, how do you get the smaller guys who can't donate the money, and taking 5 people out of their office means their office basically stops? How do you get those guys involved, but showing them the volume?
Yeah, I mean, the hub has yet to learn how to do this, but we're very happy. As you say, time is money for an SME, but if people are able to do some volunteering, that would be fantastic. And we are, maybe there are lots of ways in which SMEs come together. So maybe it's a case of getting SMEs together and finding out how they would like to contribute, and not for us to tell them what to do, but to come back to them and see if they've got any thoughts as well. But
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I'd echo what Mark says. My wider experience is that a lot of SMEs, especially family-run businesses, are very engaged in their local communities and do a lot, but they almost don't recognise. Right, yeah. And I think business in the community have done quite a lot of research on that.
Yeah, I think the thing for me as well is that media exposure. If for a small business, if they can get that exposure, and again, LinkedIn, social media, all of those things, for them sometimes that's what they need, to help them grow. So what can you give back to that small business, other than they're doing a great job and they're being part of that community and getting involved? If we don't recognise them, when we don't put that out there, then actually those businesses are just going to get the head down and not engaged. So bringing them together, but actually having a platform whereby you can showcase all of those businesses and what they're doing, to give them some visibility. I think that's one of the key things that those businesses will want.
This, and just a final point, John, I don't think this is just relevant to small businesses, but I think increasingly this work is an recruitment and retainment opportunity as well for businesses. People are starting to be, is this a business that I want to work for? Does it have values that match my own?
As the owner of a recruitment company, I agree. We have a recruitment company. And there's lots of people who come by our stand to say, look, I'm just not happy in my role. And it's very simply, they are not getting an impact from their role. There are people in sustainability, salespeople are driven by sales, marketing, whatever. I do feel in my core that sustainability people are driven by impact. And with that comes the opportunity that they want to make a positive impact and feel like they are. That needs to come from the top in their business and be driven down through that, not made to feel like they're having to take a holiday day to do some volunteering. But they will only do that if there's a commercial advantage as well. So yes, I could not agree more with what you just said then, because we're seeing it. People are wanting to leave their current jobs and maybe even take a pay cut just so they can make more of an impact. I'm not going to say that's across the line, but it is happening, especially with the, dare I say it as an old fart, the younger generation who've come into this with an impact first mentality. Definitely. I overran on 2 talks that I did yesterday, and I have been screamed at twice with some hands. So I will hand over. I overran quite a bit on one of them yesterday, and I wouldn't shut up. Is there any questions from the audience before I let these guys do their final notes? There is a hand at the back in the darkness. Yes, Batman in the shadows. Vengeance.
Thanks for that. It was really interesting. So, firstly, I'm from an organisation called Rewilding Youth. So we're a CIC in Hull. So we work with young people around nature connection and nature recovery and local climate action. So I'd love to speak to you, Mark, about that recycling project, because that sounds really interesting. But the other question I've got, which is sort of a reverse of the question you've asked as the last one, is sort of what's your advice for charities, small community groups and CICs, etc., in terms of getting businesses on board and getting that sort of corporate funding?
Do you want to go with that one first, Matt?
Yeah, definitely connect up. Get on the platform is my first bit of advice, because that gives you visibility. It's really hard for businesses to find, as John said, you can find the big players, but it's really hard to find the local, on the ground groups. So visibility is really important. Again, I think in terms of funding wise, it's really challenging for all charities at the moment, because everybody's, businesses are sort of struggling, so that cash contribution's tight. But I think the real key for me is, what does that business want back? Is it under the contracting part social value? So can you give something back in terms of that? Is it a social value that you're giving back in terms of the impact? So are we helping people move from their mental health state or into work or getting off the streets? So there'll be lots of businesses will want different things. For us, it is about social impact, what's in that neighbourhood. Other businesses may want business exposure. So it's trying to find out who you're targeting, whether they're contracting. If they're contracting, it'll be a social value element, and what that social value element looks like. We just had a workshop fairly recently with a number of charities, because there isn't a social value framework that fits a lot of charity groups. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at how we can create a new one.
Sorry, I've been told I've got 3 minutes, right? And I can't go over. Can you guys connect after? Is that all right? And carry on. Claire, before you answer that question, would you like to answer that one, or would you like see if there's any other questions from the audience? Yep. Are there any other questions? Yes, man.
Sorry, I won't bother waiting for a mic. Just a quick question for you. I do a lot of work in ESG. We seem to be moving away from talking about impacts into outcomes now. Just wondered what your thoughts were.
Is that on a KPI OKR movement, or is that specifically looking at the outcomes of everything that you do?
Yeah, so
amazing.
It's rather than social impact, social outcomes, environmental outcomes.
Yep. It's a common language shift right now, Claire. Do you want to touch?
Yeah, no, I think that's our experience as well. So whilst continuing to collect KPIs will be important, we're also looking at kind of a theory of change model that takes us right through to the outcomes as well, and indeed working back from those to if these are the outcomes that we want, what are the activities that we need to take. So our experience is similar, and I think that is important, and that we look for outcomes across the range. And I do know, and kind of links to the last question as well, is that when we talk to businesses, when we did some kind of market research in advance of the hub, they're as interested in the social outcomes as they are in the environmental outcomes. And for us in such a highly urban region, that is music to our ears, really. So those outcomes are really important.
Just very quickly. So your outcomes come from the impact. So you really should be measuring the impact, then it identifies your outcomes. So you should have both, really.
I slightly yes, but from my side, it's I am loving the move away and people reframing some of their big hairy ambitions and some of the goals that they set without knowing how they would get there. Now people are looking at outcomes first and kind of going backwards on how we're going to achieve those. For me, that's a great way of doing project management. It's a great way that sustainability should be run, especially a framework like ESG. I agree with that, and I think that's becoming a very common trend. You're seeing a lot of people change their science-based targets. You're seeing a lot of people refrain a lot of their stuff. They're not doing that because the political side of it, a lot of those are doing that because they've realised the targets they set just aren't possible. This 70% reduction in scope 3 of your top emitters, for example, without asking the question of your suppliers is not possible. So now they need to know the outcomes that they want. So agree with that, and a great question. If you have any others, please, you can grab me or you can grab Mark or you can grab Claire, either after this or by my stand. These guys, you're around all day? Yep. Fantastic. These guys will be wandering. You can talk to them. Apart from that, I'm on time. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Cheers, guys. Thank you.